On This Week in Enterprise Tech, ever wonder how your organization's technology priorities have changed? Well, we have some new research that points to where the focus has been. Plus, Curtis talks about some new password guidelines from the National Institute of Standards and Technology and how this can actually impact your organization. Plus, we have Ryan Ellis on as our guest, Senior Vice President of Product Management from Salesforce. He's going to talk about no-code, low-code solutions and some new additions to the Lightning platform. Shouldn't miss it. Twy on the set. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twyat, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 396, recorded June 5th, 2020. Salesforce low-code solutions. This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by IT Pro TV. Learn the ins and outs of IT careers and get the most up-to-date training with IT Pro TV. Visit itpro.tv/enterprise for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription, and use code Enterprise30 at checkout. And by LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. LinkedIn has the targeting tools that can help you focus on reaching your precise audience down to their job title, company name, location, and more. See how LinkedIn can help you with a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit to launch your first campaign. Visit linkedin.com/Twyat. And by Thanks Canary. Detect attackers on your network while avoiding irritating false alarms. Get the alerts that matter. For 10% off and a 60-day money-back guarantee, go to canary.tools/twit and enter the code TWIT in the How Do You Hear About Us box. Welcome to Twyat, This Week in Enterprise Tech, the show that is dedicated to you, the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and that geek who just wants to know how this world's connected. I'm your host, Louis Maresca, your guide through this big, giant world of the enterprise. But I definitely can't guide you by myself. I need to bring in the experts, the professionals, starting with our very own Mr. Brian Chee. Cheebert, now I spend my week fixing fences and building decks, but you spend yours helping organizations on rooftops with beautiful scenery. Can you tell us about it?
After that small technical difficulty, I'm doing great. The weather in Honolulu is actually pretty nice. It's been a little on the foggy side. Fog is, sulfur dioxide in the air and ash and so forth. So it looks like a stage 1 smog alert in Los Angeles every once in a while. But other than that, life is pretty decent. My lab is slowly starting to look a lot more empty, and I'm finally shutting down my 3D printers. Looking forward to the lifting of the quarantine so that we can get on our move to Florida.
Now, you were posting pictures this week of you being on rooftops installing, what were you installing, Wi-Fi or?
Yeah, actually it's 60 gigahertz. It's a point-to-point 60 gigahertz link. I was hoping and praying these tiny little leaves in the monkey pod trees weren't going to interfere, but sadly at 60 gigahertz, they did. And it's only a 1 degree beam, so that got tough. So we're trying to get permission from the Parks Department to cut that branch down. And if we can, then I'll have a full duplex gig link from the top of the Pacific Basin Research Center to a bathroom complex where we have our underwater cable coming in.
Very nice. Well, I need more of those pictures because that was some beautiful scenery that you posted there.
That was a nice surf day. There's a lot of surfers out that day.
Excellent. Cool. Well, speaking of experts, we have our very own Mr. Curtis Franklin. He's a senior editor over there at Dark Reading. Curtis, what's going on in the great state of Florida?
Well, we have entered rainy season with a bang. It's been raining for several days. It's supposed to rain for the next week before we finally get back to normal rainy season. You know, that's the one that the tourists love, where it only rains between 3:30 and 6 in the afternoon. The constant rain, though, is pretty good. It lets me sit here and talk to people about security, write some stories, and get ready for a great episode of Twiat.
Indeed, indeed. And speaking of a great episode, we have some pretty interesting stuff this week in enterprise news. Now, have you noticed your organization changing their technology priorities? Think about that. Well, remote working has become the norm, and we'll discuss the outcome of some new research that talks about where organizations are now focusing their technology. Plus, there's some new password guidelines from the U.S. federal government from the National Institute of Standard of Technology. And Curtis is going to take us through all the details there. Plus, I am very excited about today's guest because we're not only going to talk about low-code and no-code solutions, but client platforms and CRM, some of my favorite things. We have Ryan Ellis on, Senior Vice President of Product Management from Salesforce. But first, it has been a super busy week in enterprise, so let's go ahead and jump into this week's Blips. Now, many organizations are building applications that work better from session to session. Now, some users use incognito mode because they don't want to be tracked. Now, for example, some users use incognito mode to bypass content paywalls and various content filters and limiters. Now, private browsing modes in most browsers also ship with aggressive anti-tracking features that block websites from tracking and fully monetizing their traffic. And they also require you to opt in to extensions so they can't siphon data out and track those as well. However, code in extensions and in sites can detect this mode and offer specific experiences. Now, in early 2019, Google decided to take a stance against such scripts. Now, Google Chrome 76, released in July 2019, included an update that blocked websites from using the file system API to detect if a user is using Chrome's normal browsing mode or if it was in incognito mode. Now, before Chrome 76, the file system API was simply not available in incognito mode, and website operators only had to query this API to find out if a user was using that mode. Now, with Chrome 76, Google activated the file system API for incognito mode windows, making previous detection scripts useless. However, this update wasn't foolproof. Google didn't fully activate the file system API, but merely set up a hard limit to the amount of storage space that incognito mode windows could access at 128 megabytes. Now, it took programmers under a week after the Chrome 76 release to discover that what was happening and developed scripts that probed the file system API to determine the amount of storage space on a website could access and indirectly detecting if the user was using incognito mode or not. Now, even though there are valid reasons to want to detect incognito mode, adversaries also know how to take advantage of it as well. In fact, this past week, Google was named in a class action lawsuit where its ad division was accused of being secretly tracking users even if they were navigating the web in incognito mode. Now, advertisers like Google have a collection of indicators to track users in both normal and in incognito mode. Now, blocking this mode won't stop advertisers from tracking users in that mode, or as both websites and operators and advertisers will still be able to see information such as IP addresses and other traffic data. With points of view on each side of the coin, it will be interesting to see if a lawsuit will cause the coin to continue to land on one side from now on.
Well, mobile phishing attacks are seeing a sharp increase. Mobile security vendor Lookout analyzed data gathered last quarter from smartphones and tablets running its software and found a 66.3% increase at the rate at which corporate users in North America encountered mobile phishing compared with the fourth quarter of 2019. Globally, the increase was large but smaller at around 37%. Lookout attributes the increase in the first quarter of 2020 largely to the high number of phishing campaigns centered on the COVID-19 pandemic. But even without that immediate impetus, mobile-focused campaigns have been ticking steadily upward over the last several quarters, with organizations in regulated industries such as healthcare, financial services, professional services, and manufacturing in particular tending to be attacked more heavily than organizations in other sectors. According to Lookout, the rate at which mobile users click on links in mobile phishing messages is much higher than the rates on laptops and desktop devices. One major reason is that mobile-focused phishing scams are harder to detect. The telltale signs of a phishing email that many users might recognize on a laptop screen are harder to detect on smartphones and tablets because of the smaller form factors. As with phishing emails, any mobile communication from an unfamiliar source with a request to follow a link or open a document needs to be treated with the greatest of suspicion.
Extra, extra, read all about it. No more data caps at one ISP. The coronavirus pandemic caused big ISPs to put data caps on hold for a few months, but one small ISP is going a big step further and canceling the arbitrary monthly limits permanently. Antietam Broadband, which serves Washington County in Maryland, announced Friday that it's permanently removed broadband data usage caps for all customers, retroactively to mid-March when the company first temporarily suspended data cap overage fees. The decision to permanently drop the cap was made partly because of learnings from the COVID-19 pandemic as more people worked and learned remotely, Antietam explained. During this period, customers moved into broadband packages that more accurately reflected their broadband needs. Like most other ISPs, Antietam charges different prices based on speed tiers as measured in bits per second, with Antietam's advertised download speeds ranging up to 1 gig per second. Quote, "These are uncertain times. We felt the need to give customers as much certainty over their bill as possible," Antietam President Brian Lynch said in a press release. Eliminating data usage caps means that customers will know the exact amount of their broadband bill every month. I, for one, love this move and hope against hope that larger ISPs will follow, but I ain't holding my breath.
Now, you remember Google Plus. Well, I actually found it to be better than Reddit sometimes, but interesting to hear our audience thought so as well. Well, there's some important people inside and outside Google who thought it was a good platform. Now, Google shut down Google Plus as a social network in 2019 due to low usage, but an enterprise version of G Suite customers was still available. Now, any lingering Google Plus enterprise users will be transitioning to Currents next month. Plus links will redirect to Currents as well. However, this particular platform is making a comeback, and it's coming back as Currents. Now, it's Google Plus replacement, basically, generally available to G Suite users starting in July. Now, the company announced in email G Suite administrators on Friday. Google describes Currents as a tool that will allow companies to engage employees and have meaningful discussions. Now, the interface for Currents includes a home stream, which can either be ordered chronologically or by relevance, and allows sharing of links and images, text, polls, and content from Google Drive and other accounts. Now, company admins will have added content moderation features, will be able to target certain employees with custom streams, and can track engagement in posts and across the platform. Now, Currents has been in beta for several months along with G Suite users. While Google unsuccessfully tried to position Google Plus as a potential competitor to Facebook or Twitter, Current appears to more closely resemble Slack or Microsoft Teams. Now, it's rolling out at the time when more people are using collaboration software to work remotely, which led Slack to breaking a user record in March. Now, this might be Google's chance to get into the remote collaboration space to enhance their Google Suite. Now, we just have to see how fast it will adopt or how fast they'll retire it again.
Well, local and state governments are facing a cybersecurity crisis. According to experts speaking this week, state and local governments, already under attack by cyber criminals and ransomware operators, are facing heightened cybersecurity threats as they move into the second half of 2020, when they're going to be required to manage elections while dealing with hard economic choices. The combination of reduced tax revenues and the additional costs caused by the pandemic could strain budgets for typical cost centers like cybersecurity. Already, government-focused companies have noticed a significant loss of focus on cybersecurity in their state and local government clients. Because of the relative lack of cybersecurity expertise and their need to stay operational, state and local governments have become favored targets of cyber criminals, especially ransomware operators, because small government agencies are more likely to pay in order to recover from a ransomware attack. Already on shaky ground, in 2020, cybersecurity has dropped off the radar for many government organizations because of a trifecta of social threats: coronavirus infections, unemployment, and protests. According to many experts, focusing on increasing cloud adoption could be one path forward. Cybersecurity training is also a relatively cheap measure that could help to harden local governments against ransomware attacks and prepare county workers for election threats. Finally, segmentation that aims to slow attackers' movements through a network could help keep critical data safe, and more consistent backups can allow governments to recover following a cyber attack.
Well, iPhone looters find devices disabled with a warning they're being tracked. Along with other retailers, big and small, Apple stores have been subject to looting by opportunists amid the ongoing protests around the United States. In response, Apple has again closed all its stores in the U.S. and had only recently reopened after closures related to the COVID-19 pandemic. But looters who brought stolen iPhones home or people who end up buying those phones in person-to-person transactions are in for what may be a surprise. It appears that the stolen iPhones don't work and may even be tracked by Apple or authorities. This could pose a challenge for regular consumers who buy secondhand iPhones as well as repair shops in the coming weeks and months. To the looters I say, thou art an idiot, and I hope you get nicked. I mean, stealing anything with hardware IDs is just asking to spend time in the slammer.
Now, it wouldn't be a week with enterprise. It wouldn't be a week in the enterprise without a leak. That's right. Security researchers have discovered a new kind of ransomware that uses a little-known Java file format to make it more difficult to detect before it detonates its file encryption payload. Now, consulting giant KPMG's incident response unit was called in to run the recovery effort at an unnamed European educational institute hit by ransomware attacks. Now, security research unit, which partners with KPMG, analyzed the malware and published its findings. Now, it said that a hacker broke into the institute's network using a remote desktop server connected to the internet and deployed a persistent backdoor in order to gain easy access to the network after they leave. Now, after a few days of inactivity to prevent detection, the hacker re-entered the network again through the backdoor, disabled any running anti-malware services, spread the ransomware module across the network, and detonated the payload, encrypting each computer's files and holding them hostage for ransom. Now, the researchers said it was the first time they've seen a ransomware module compiled in a Java image file format, or JImage. Now, these files contain all the components needed for the code to run, a bit like Java applications, but are rarely scanned by anti-malware engines and can go largely undetected. Now, researchers named the ransom Tycoon, referencing a folder name found in the decompiled code. Now, the researchers said the module had code that allows the ransomware to run on both Windows and Linux computers. Now, ransomware operators typically use strong off-the-shelf encryption algorithms to scramble victims' files in the exchange for ransom, often demand for cryptocurrency. For most victims, their only options are to hope that they have a backup or pay the ransom. But the researchers said there's hope outside paying in backups. Some victims could recover their encrypted files. That's right. Early versions of the Tycoon ransomware use the same encryption keys to scramble their victims' files. That means that one decryption tool could be used to recover the files from multiple victims. But newer versions of the Tycoon seem to have fixed the weakness in the latest versions. Now, what does this mean for your organization? Well, as always, make sure you have a backup. Well, folks, that does it for the blips. Next up, the bytes. But before we get to the bytes, we have to thank a really great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is IT Pro TV. Now, you're a busy professional. I'm definitely a busy professional. It can be difficult to learn new skills or develop skills to make a career change. Well, IT Pro TV has made learning IT and finishing IT certifications simple. Not only will you be able to learn quickly, but you can learn at your own pace whenever you have time. Now, if you're interested in an IT career but aren't sure where to start, IT Pro TV has taken the guesswork out of all of it. I find a great feature of IT Pro TV for you and your teams. They have learning coaches. Now, running a large team, I can tell you, everyone has different career paths and goals. Like IT Pro TV helps you map your IT team's needs and goals to the IT Pro TV course library. Now, learn about career paths and the associated certifications to engage your IT team and grow the skill base of your team members. Now, sign up for a premium membership and let an expert guide you, and engage and grow the skill base of your teams through a corporate premium membership. You'll start by setting your goals, and your coach will implement an IT training program to help you reach them. Now, their extensive IT career paths library can assist you in learning more about the different IT careers and help you pick which one is best for you. From entry-level IT to cybersecurity, you can learn the ins and outs of them all as a jumping-off point, such as what you'll be doing and how much you have the potential to make. Once your training is complete, IT Pro TV takes it a step further and helps assist you in finding the career of your dreams. There are over 4,000 hours of IT training that they offer, as well as being the official video training partner of CompTIA, and have 12 CompTIA on-demand courses, including CompTIA A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus certifications. Now is the perfect time to maximize the potential of your team and help them get certifications they need to become successful. Let IT Pro TV guide you in the IT career that is best for you. Go to itpro.tv/enterprise and use the code enterprise30 to receive 30% off all consumer subscriptions. That's itpro.tv/enterprise and use the code enterprise30 for an additional 30% off for the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV. Build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey. And we thank IT Pro TV for their support of the This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, it's now time for the Bytes. Now, have you ever wondered what the pressures we are feeling in the enterprise world as technologists, as well as to lead our organizations to respond to the pandemic? Well, there's many priorities in our organization, and I think they've potentially changed, especially in the digital transformation of things. Well, based on a recent report and a global research study called the Agents of Transformation Report from AppDynamics, which is actually a Cisco company that's growing contender in application performance monitoring, or APMs. Now, COVID-19 pandemic has required enterprise and organizations to shift overnight to an almost completely digital world. Now, the latest research from AppDynamics reveals that technologies are experiencing pressure from every angle as they mobilize workforces to operate from home, manage increased pressure on their networks and applications, and maintain the security of the technology stack while also taking on new roles and responsibilities. Now, here's some of the key findings I want to kind of highlight here. 81% of all technologists state that COVID-19 has created the biggest technology pressure for their organization they've ever experienced. 61% of IT professionals feel under more pressure at work than ever before. 64% are now being asked to perform tasks and activities they've never done before. 66 of those technologists, 66%, confirm that the pandemic has exposed weaknesses in their digital strategies, creating an urgent need to actually push through initiatives that were once part of a multi-year digital transformation program. 71% say digital transformation projects in their organizations have been implemented within weeks, rather than months or years if they would have taken them before pandemic. And 95% of organizations changed their technology priorities during the pandemic. Now, I want to throw this to my co-host, Chris. Curtis, you have the pulse of the enterprise world. Do these findings kind of match what you're seeing?
You know, they really do. I've talked to a number of people about this over the last week or two. And in general, what we're seeing is that businesses are focusing their technology spends on the technology that has a direct impact on the bottom line. And that's typically on the revenue side. People are looking at big swings at cost cutting, shutting down businesses, laying off workforce. And so the technology spend, that's emphasizing what the company can do to bring in more money, making transactions easier, launching new services, things like that. Anything that's not directly related to that, it's getting pushed way on back to one of those small back burners.
So now I want to throw this to Chee, because Chee, you work with a lot of organizations, especially for consulting. What are you seeing? Are you seeing basically this information? Is it matching what you're seeing?
Well, now that the mad panic is starting to, calm a bit, I'm starting to hear lots and lots of people saying, I really like the option to work from home, especially our friends that have families. And more I'm hearing people saying, hey, if I can't keep this in my present job, maybe it's time to move jobs, because I really like working from home, or at least having the option to do it. Heck, the university environment in general is, shall we say, resistant to change. But even the faculty I've been working from have all of a sudden decided, gee, this is not such a bad thing. And maybe when this is done, I'll just come in infrequently. And that's going to cause a kind of a cascade or a domino effect. Parking allocations are going to need to change. The security people are definitely investing a lot more in securing, concentrating on physical security, because there are less people on campus, and unfortunately vandals and thieves are taking advantage of this. I'm sure it's changing in the private sector also. So the reality is, yeah, I think the IT people are got it dead on. The world is changing. I don't think life is going to be exactly as we saw it before this pandemic kicked off.
That's right. I agree. Actually, in fact, my wife said the other day just about school, how everything has changed there. And she really feels that now that it's changed, it's going to stay that way permanently. I want to throw this to Curtis. Curtis, what do you think? A lot of these changes that have come up, are they permanent for organizations? Are they going to stay this way?
Well, that's an interesting question. And it's another one that I've been talking with a lot of people about. And it's really split. Some people are of the opinion that given another 6 to 9 months, we're going to be looking just like we were back in, say, November or December of last year. Another group thinks that the changes that we're seeing really are permanent, and that's been bolstered by the decision from some companies like Twitter and Facebook, who have said that they see more and more employees working from home as a very long-term situation. Now, I've been working primarily from a home office for, call it 30 years. And I don't see the problem that many people forecast with this. It's much easier now than it was in the 1990s. And my team at Dark Reading, for example, is entirely virtual. All of us work from our own locations rather than from an office somewhere. So I think that we are going to see a lot of change, but I don't think it's going to be evenly distributed. In other words, I don't think that there are going to be large changes at every single company. Some companies will. Some companies will try to go back to the old way as quickly as possible. The question is going to be, which of those approaches is the competitive advantage? And that's the one that we really don't know the answer to just yet.
The interesting thing is I'm seeing a lot of changes, obviously, in just the way we do security. A lot of organizations are changing this as well. They're changing, obviously making sure MFA is enabled, making sure that devices are within, mobile device management. There's a lot of things that are changing that are being enforced now that weren't necessarily enforced before. And I kind of think that that's permanent. Cheebert, what do you think? Permanent?
Permanent. And I definitely want to send a thank you to the organization. We've actually been under embargo with this story for a couple of weeks now. And that way we're able to plan for it and, work it into our schedule. So a big thank you to the press people for this one.
Thank you as well. We'll have to see what happens for sure, but that does it for that bite. Let's go on to the next bite because Curtis is going to take us to some new password guidelines from the U.S. federal government. What are those, Curtis?
Well, especially if you're a government contractor dealing with the massive federal infrastructure, you need to know about NIST and DFARS and the regulations they're putting on passwords. The reason is that organizations that fail to comply with these rules can get hit with absolutely back-breaking fines as well as class action lawsuits. Now, government contracts can be awfully attractive for organizations of any size. For an example, just look at the incredibly fierce competition that has gone on around the DoD's JEDI project, a cloud computing project, earmarked at roughly $10 billion. Every organization that engages in work with a government agency, whether large or small, must conform to a set of security standards and regulations. Key among them are rules set by NIST, or the National Institute of Science and Technology, a body that sets standards for different areas of information processing, including identification, authentication, information storage and processing, and many, many more. Organizations that want to work with the DoD, as well as any organization that handles DoD's data on their behalf, must also comply with the Defense Federal Acquisitions Regulatory Supplement, or DFARS. So, what do these mean? In practice, many companies have interpreted them to mean that a definite set of complexity rules. must be enacted. And for years, security experts have advised using long, complex passwords. You know the drill, upper and lowercase letters, digits, and symbols, to avoid falling victim to brute force login credential forcing attacks. And moreover, users are instructed to choose unique passwords for each account and to change those passwords on a regular basis. The problem is human beings. Complex passwords are hard to remember, and the cognitive load is so great that most users don't even bother, and they try to find a workaround in one of a couple of ways, either storing their passwords in plain text computer documents, reusing them across different accounts, or using some sort of password manager. That doesn't even count the people who just decide that ABC123 period is a nice, strong password. It's for these reasons that NIST has relaxed some of its rules surrounding password structures. It deemed complex passwords and periodic changes non-essential. Instead, NIST advised that passwords be between 8 and 64 characters and changes be enforced not on a regular basis, but in case of a suspected breach. Before accepting new passwords, organizations were also tasked with checking them against available lists of compromised passwords, like those on the popular website, Have I Been Pwned? NIST guidelines show that password complexity has reached its limits. Because computers become faster and more powerful every year, more and more effective cracking tools are being placed in the hands of hackers. Now, the problem is that if we do these longer passwords, we have to store them in most cases. Again, if you have a lot of accounts, and let's face it, if you're working and living in the modern world, you do, there are limits to how many you can keep in your head. And so you're going to write them down or record them somewhere, even if that is in something that you think is secure, like a password store. Today, most organizations store hashed passwords, that is, passwords that are converted into scrambled representations of themselves. But that isn't enough by itself. Organizations also have to control employee access to those passwords and make sure unauthorized personnel can't extract user account passwords. As several security incidents have shown, mishandling user credentials happens even with firm credential handling policies. So what's the alternative? Welcome multi-factor authentication. Now, DFARS certifies certain types of multi-factor authentication, or MFA, including certificates that are securely stored on an endpoint, like using keychain storage, TPM or TEE. The key must also be strongly protected against unauthorized disclosure and only accessible to the relevant software components. But MFA adoption had hit its own hurdles. Many users have issues with entering passwords every time they want to access their accounts. The added friction of entering an additional one-time passcode or producing a physical key in the login process is off-putting, pushing the users to what? Try and work around the authentication process. So how do you gear up? The conflict between convenience and security is exemplified by this challenge of user authentication, and particularly large-scale password management. The good news is that the management technology is getting better. The bad news is that not enough companies have begun to use this combination of good password management and multi-factor authentication. I want to turn to my co-host, and Brian, I'll turn to you because I know you have dealt with government-enforced regulations on user authentication. So do you say or see any application of these standards beyond just government contracts?
Yeah, this is okay. Let's kind of clarify this. It is about freaking time. We've had these standards in place, but they've had no teeth. I personally think this is we're going to lay this out and then we're going to sharpen the teeth. people need to do this. Now, the big issue that I see is that if you're working in, say, something like a SCIF or any kind of classified arrangement, or even guarding proprietary information in the private sector, most of the times you're not allowed to take in your smartphone or your personal laptop or something like that. Even it's something as simple as a USB key. So there are some holes in this. Just because you've got a classified MFA tool that's storing hashed passwords or whatever, most of the time you can't take that out. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of this spillover. A lot of the private sector uses the government policies to set their private sector policies or use them as a model. The hassle is there's still a few holes to work out. I am personally very, very happy that my university has gone to MFA, and that's something that has been a long time coming. In fact, being able to do my push authentication on my Apple iWatch has been liberating. I still say we've got a few more steps to go. We're going to have both the DoD classified world and the private sector kind of agree upon some sort of MFA that can transition into classified areas. Otherwise, I think we're moving in the right direction. I just think we're not quite there yet.
Well, I like the idea of moving in the right direction. Lou, I'm going to ask you the question. If we're moving in the right direction and it's 2020, why on earth are we still talking about password policies?
I mean, there's a lot of legacy software and services that are out there today that still just require passwords. A lot of them, it's hard for them to integrate, login, MFA type login modes, and multiple handshakes and OAuth and all these different types of models that are out there. So a lot of platforms are making this easier. You have Auth0 and you have Azure AD and a bunch of other, which MSOL and ADAL is the different libraries that are supporting applications today to help you integrate kind of legacy models into these kind of new models that support MFA and other passwordless type modes. So I think that's the problem, is people are just not taking the time to migrate their current solutions over to using these things to support some of the new models that don't necessarily even require passwords, or if they do, it's kind of done with a multiple handshake type thing. So I think that it's really just a legacy thing, and I hope that some organizations will start to see the benefit, especially during this whole remote workforce and then the pandemic.
Well, far be it from me to say anything bad about vintage equipment or personnel, but I, for one, can't wait to see the end of this particular piece of archaic legacy technology. When passwords finally go, it will be a great day. Another great day is here on Twiat because we have such a fabulous guest coming up. And to get to that guest as soon as possible, I'm going to hand things over to our noble leader, Lou Maresca.
Thank you, Curt. That's right. We do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is LinkedIn Marketing Solutions. All right, let me ask you, where are all the professionals at? Well, they're on LinkedIn. Now, right now, the world is changing and businesses are adapting in different ways. And in these uncertain times, how do you make sure your marketing gets the right results you need? Well, LinkedIn can help you reach people who are looking for opportunities to help their business and can focus your campaigns on the objectives for today so your marketing works better. Now, with over 62 million decision makers on LinkedIn, you'll be able to connect with the right business leaders, people who are there to learn. They want to know how to be more effective at their jobs and find products to help their companies. Now, 71% of people say they use the information they find on LinkedIn to help inform their business decisions. And with LinkedIn ads, you can make sure your messages are getting through to the right people. LinkedIn marketing can help you build campaigns using objective-based advertising and allow you to customize the campaign experience based on the action you want your customer to take, whether you're trying to drive clicks to a website, generate leads, or even generate video views. LinkedIn has the targeting tools that can help you focus on reaching your precise audience down to their job title, company name, location, and more. In fact, you can reach people you already know based on who has visited your site or you've contacted in the past. Now, LinkedIn ads can help all types of businesses get the marketing results they need today. Now, when I post things on LinkedIn, I can tell you I get a ton of engagement, especially the people I want to engage. In fact, professionals that I know I want to target. Now, when I post some information I did on Office Developer Platform a couple weeks ago, I get a ton of responses. In fact, when I did the session, a lot of them said, hey, I got your information on LinkedIn. So, in fact, as a podcast network, we've used LinkedIn marketing solutions many times for TWIT, and we really like how it's able to reach a wider audience, a professional audience, that ultimately expands the presence. Now, it's great specifically for the fact that once you get on the platform, you can maneuver the direction of your campaign easily. See how LinkedIn can help you with a free $100 LinkedIn ad credit to launch your first campaign. Visit linkedin.com/Twyet, linkedin.com/TWIET. Terms and conditions apply. Support Twyet right now by heading over to linkedin.com/Twyet. And we thank LinkedIn Marketing Solutions for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, it's now my favorite part of the show. We actually get to bring in a guest to drop some knowledge on the Twyet Riot. Today we have Ryan Ellis. He's the Senior Vice President of Product Management over at Salesforce. Ryan, so great to have you on.
Hey, Lou. It's great to be here with you all. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, our audience loves to hear people's kind of journeys through tech. Can you maybe take us on a journey and what brought you to Salesforce?
Yeah, I've been at Salesforce for about 12 years now, and it's been an incredible journey. I actually joined the company as the first product manager for the App Exchange, which is our app store, which actually predated other app stores, such as the one that's so well known with Apple and Google and the others. And I basically got to create that whole economy for Salesforce, which was a ton of fun. I then moved on to running many of our sort of back-end technologies for developers, things like application lifecycle management, environments, release management capabilities, and the sort. And about 4 years ago, I switched roles again and moved into our Lightning organization. Lightning is really all about our low-code technologies. And today I'm responsible for our UI and mobile technologies in that area in particular.
Fantastic. You're speaking my language because I love low-code solutions. Now, Salesforce is constantly innovating here. They're releasing new powerful solutions, like you were talking about, a little bit of no-code solutions. But before we get there, can you maybe take us through the evolution of the client platform that you've seen from Salesforce over the last couple of years?
Yeah, we made some really big shifts actually about 4 or 5 years ago when we moved from what we referred to as our classic experience to our Lightning experience. And the big change there was that we moved from an entirely server-side generated architecture to one that was both a client and a server-side thing, essentially enabling what people call SPAs or single-page applications. And that's a big change that lots and lots of companies have been embracing. Certainly, you've seen that in companies like Facebook and others. They've had those architectures for a little while. But in the enterprise, that really started to enable all sorts of new capabilities for people in terms of being able to rapidly change that user experience and really provide consumer-like experiences for people even in the enterprise.
Now, when I worked on Microsoft Dynamics, I worked on the unified client infrastructure, and we really wanted to engage in the most modern web platform that was out there. And we kind of looked at Lightning Platform as the gold standard that came out because they focused on modern web technology and how that married to responsive design. Can you maybe take us through how that platform has kind of evolved over the years?
Yeah, so it's really taken off for us. In particular, we now have, I think it's 94% of all of our customers now are using Lightning. So it's a huge boon for really all of our customers. In the last couple of years, we've made some particular significant enhancements. And for example, our last release, we just announced that we have a capability called dynamic forms and dynamic actions. And these capabilities basically give people a drag and drop capability to build a form. So pull over individual fields, pull them over into sections, lay them out on the page exactly as makes most sense for your end user. It's dead simple to use. And you can also then set up conditional logic so that people can do things like hide and show fields or sections based upon data that's on the page, based on contextual information about the user, who they are, what department they're in, maybe what language they speak, what region of the world they're in. as well as device-specific information. So maybe you want to show different information when you're on your phone than when you're on your desktop because you have a lot less space and real estate. So those capabilities have really been accelerating what Salesforce administrators can do with just visual tools, and also providing for better experiences for the end users because they're much more intuitive and faster.
So we have a lot of IT pros and enterprise professionals kind of listening to this. And I can definitely tell you a lot of them love no-code and no-code solutions, but they also like the ability to customize things as well. So really deep customizations. Now, a lot of times they like the fact that some of these platforms out there are kind of abstracting the way the database or the storage unit and more of defining UIs by using metadata and other things. So then they can just use wizards and builders like you're talking about. How deep does the kind of Lightning platform go? Does it allow that kind of no code type building, but also allows you to kind of deeper customization as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the really important things about when you talk about low code in general is that it's not no code, right? No code is great for simpler applications, but there are often places where you need to be able to then extend that with the power of professional developers to really provide the refinements you want. So some examples with what you can do with the Lightning platform. In particular, let's just start in the UI layer. I mean, if you wanted to have a particular component on that page and have it have a very specific experience, maybe it's some sort of report component that's extremely dynamic and changes as you change values on the page. That's the type of thing where a professional developer might build that component using our technology, which is called Lightning Web Components. It's a web standards-based technology. Any JavaScript developer can create it. And then once you provided that inside of the environment, an admin can actually take that and then using the low-code tools, drag and drop it onto the page and configure it as needed. That's an example on the front end. We also have tons of connections and integrations in the back end. So, for example, suppose that you wanted to be able to follow along with the process. Maybe it's taking a new hire that you have through some sort of onboarding wizard. And as a step of that thing, you wanted to be able to call out to maybe some sort of external service that could, provision them some new licenses. Maybe it's with their Workday account. That's something that you can do with our Apex language and our Flow Builder. Flow Builder is the low-code tool that allows you to define that process. And then you could call out using Apex, which is essentially a Java-like language, to actually make that external service run and its data return.
Very cool. Now, what about out-of-the-box templates? Because I know a lot of organizations, they come in, they say, hey, we want to build a solution for, let's say, our customer service organization or sales organization, and we have very specific things we want to be able to collect some data, maybe show some analytics. Is there some templates out there to help organizations kind of kickstart them?
Yeah, there are. And actually, my background with the App Exchange is a really important part of that. I mean, we created that ecosystem a long time ago because we believed that, we would never be able to create all the solutions or be the experts in every industry that existed, and that we really needed to bring this whole economy of people together. And so we leveraged the App Exchange very heavily for that. So as an example for that, there are tons of templates for applications as a whole, but there are also templates for the smaller bits and bytes. So for example, you can download templates of components and start using those. You could download templates of flows or processes that you might follow, and then change those things and modify them as you see fit. So it's a really rich environment. There's over 7,000 solutions available on it. Many of them are free. And people are contributing their knowledge and know-how back to it all the time.
And dynamic forms and dynamic actions seem very interesting because they allow you to basically represent even just a field or an attribute of an entity as a component. Does this scale for mobile all the way up to web?
Yeah, it does. And that was a big piece of Lightning as well, is ensuring that we had a unified type of architecture across all different form factors that you might use. People don't want to build the same thing multiple times, and yet they need to have nuanced experiences that are different across them. So, by providing a component-based architecture, by providing something that's very modular in nature, we are able to sort of, skirt that thin line, allowing for both the levels of customizations that you want and the reusability of code and components that you need.
Right. So these dynamic kind of components that we talked about a little bit, you talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but can they be kind of role-based permissions to these components where maybe an IT or data owner might want to say, hey, for this particular role, they can see it, or for this particular user, they can only see this much of data, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. We have granularity both in the UI layer as well as in the actual data layer itself. So it depends upon where you want to sort of set that level of security. If you were looking, for example, to make it so that every single way in which this data can be pulled out is controlled such that you have to have the right permissions to it, that's something you're going to be setting, again, using our low-code tools, but at essentially the database layer. That would make it so that, for example, if you did an API call against it, you get the same exact thing as if you did a UI call against it, and so on. So that's one layer. But of course, sometimes you don't necessarily want that to be the layer of granularity. Sometimes maybe you want it at the higher level in the UI. Maybe it's just that in a particular instance, maybe when you're viewing it in a particular way, you're on a mobile device, or you are, like I said, maybe in a particular type of role, it just doesn't make sense to show that information to the user at that time. And so you can use our conditional visibility logic, which is part of our app builder, again, one of those visual drag and drop tools, to basically just very easily set rules that say, show these under these conditions and hide them under those.
Fantastic. Well, when we come back, I do want to bring my co-hosts in because they're chomping at the bit here to ask a bunch of questions. But before we get to them, I do want to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is Think's Canary. Now, with everything that's going on in the world, Think's Canary wants you to know they are here for you. Now, data breaches are on the rise, and companies usually find out too late that they've been compromised even after spending millions on IT security. Now, Canary is designed to be installed and configured and most likely forgotten in minutes. Now, Think's Canary has a great solution that will make it easy for you to catch breachers in the act. If you needed to be alerted, Canary gives you the option of deciding how to be told, email or text, on your console, Slap, webhooks, syslog, or even just their API to integrate with other systems. Now, alerts should be dead simple and easy to work with, conforming to your needs, not the other way around. And Think's Canary has made that possible. You won't be inundated with alerts either. You get only the ones that really matter to you. Now, two things all companies should know when it comes to data breaches. Hackers take the path of least resistance. Your staff, your users. It takes on average 191 days for a company to realize they have a data breach, which is really bad. So here's where Canary jumps in and works really well. It looks identical to a router, a switch, a NAS server, or a Linux box or Windows server, so attackers can't tell the difference. Now, Think's Canaries don't look vulnerable on your network. They look valuable and appealing. You can put fake files on them or enroll them in Active Directory. Now, when attackers investigate further, they give themselves away and you're instantly notified. Now, the company behind Canary has been in the security game for almost 2 decades. They've trained companies, militaries, governments on how to break into networks and have used the knowledge to build Canary. Now, Think's Canaries are deployed all over the world on all 7 continents and are one of the best tools against data breachers. I've tried this system out. It's amazing how simple and easy it is to get started. I quickly added these things to a network. Do your organization a favor. Get some of these right now. Visit canary.tools/twit. And for just $7,500 per year, you'll get 5 Canaries, your own hosted console, upgrades, support, and maintenance. And if you use the code TWIT in the How to Hear About Us box, we'll get 10% off the price for life. We know you'll love Think's Canary, but if you're not happy, you can always return your Canaries with their 2-month money-back guarantee for a full refund. That's canary.tools/twit and enter the code TWIT in the How to Hear About Us box. And we thank Think's Canary for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, we're talking with Ryan Ellis. He's the Senior Vice President of Product Management at Salesforce. We're talking about the new dynamic platform that they have built on Lightning. I do want to bring my co-host back in, and I want to throw it over to Curtis first. Curtis?
Well, I wanted to ask a question based on something that you said in your earlier talk with Lou. You were talking about the experience of working with applications built on Salesforce, and you talked about making it a consumer-like experience. We all get that, but my question to you is this: how did we get to a place where consumer-grade user interface is the gold standard? You know, in so many things, from tools to kitchenware to something else. We want professional grade. We want things that make us feel like we are professionals. Only in software does it seem that we all want to pretend that we're playing World of Warcraft while we're handling inventory. How did we get to this point? And, do you think that it's either stifling or changing our innovation when it comes to commercial enterprise user interfaces?
That's a really great question. I think I would actually maybe say that we want a bit of both. We want something that is a consumer-like experience in terms of what the end users are touching and feeling. And then we want something that is professional and enterprise grade from the perspective of the IT professionals who are building that application, and they want it to have incredible levels of security and reliability and scalability. It's not really acceptable to have just one or the other anymore. If you have something that's just purely, enterprise grade and super secure and all of that, but the usability of it is terrible, people find typically that there's essentially rejection. There's organ failure, if you will, that the organization does not really use that tool and it doesn't actually see the value out of it that they could have. At the same time, if you build an experience that's just beautiful and very, very easy to use, but in the back end is, full of vulnerabilities and other types of issues, well, then you get into a very, very troubling place as an enterprise very quickly. So you basically need both of these things to be, done with excellent capabilities in both sides.
Well, I want to switch gears just a little bit because, of course, Salesforce, I think, is known as being as much an ecosystem as it is an application. Mm-hmm. And it's not the only system that's that way. I think of something like WordPress, the CMS that's used by so many millions of sites. But they have an issue where the core WordPress is quite secure, but because they tend to lean so heavily on themes and linked files and add-ins, plugins, all of those auxiliary files, that's where there are a lot of security issues. Now, we don't tend to hear about the same kind of security issues with all of the various Salesforce applications, components, add-ins. How do you keep Salesforce from having the same issues that someplace like WordPress does when it comes to the quality, reliability, and security of all of the applications that work around you?
I think it really starts with Salesforce's top value overall, which is trust. I mean, this company started in 1999, which was not a time when people trusted putting their data, their precious data of their company, onto the internet, onto somebody else's servers. And we as a company needed to establish that trust early, and we needed to win it every single day. If we really fell down on trust at any moment, the way our model works, our customers could leave us. They essentially we're re-winning their business every year. And with that in mind, when we created the whole App Exchange ecosystem, we made sure that from the very first day, we had a big, essentially security set of standards that you had to pass in order to get through and get your application onto the site in the first place. And you can speak with any of our ISVs. I know I did for a long time when I had that role. It's quite a gamut for them to get through, sometimes taking them upwards of 6 months to actually pass through our reviews. And we would also do frequent re-reviews of those things, making sure that, again, they were staying to high levels of standards, no matter how maybe security vulnerabilities over time are changing. Additionally, we would spend a lot of energy in building great security tooling so that our partners could actually utilize these things to help scan their solutions on a regular basis. For example, doing a CI/CD type of scan that would look for vulnerabilities with each build that they did. And additionally, we spend a lot of time building a lot of resources around education. So it's an area where we have always heavily invested. We think it's an incredibly valuable area for us to continue to invest in, and is the reason why you don't hear of all those problems that you're hearing of with the WordPress environment.
Okay.
Well,
over to you, Brian.
This sounds awesome, and I'm going to ask the question for the smaller business. Salesforce kind of has a stigma or reputation as big business. But what about the little guys? Can they get started in Salesforce, and how do they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, going back to our roots, I mean, we actually started with small businesses, right? As a small business ourselves at that time, small businesses were really the only ones who wanted to do business with us at that era. And also with this whole idea of us building, consumer-like experiences, again, speaks volumes to the small business who it often doesn't have time to spend a lot of energy into customizing or training people on how to use the software. It needs to be dead simple to use from day one. In particular, we have an offering which we refer to as Essentials, which is priced for small businesses. It's an actually separate business unit within our company with experts who are both on the support side of the house as well as the sales side of the house, really helping our small business customers to be extremely successful and nimble. About a third of Salesforce's customers today are actually small businesses.
I want to switch gears just a bit. I know that a lot of organizations might already be on Salesforce. They might already have some implementations in place, but they want to take advantage of some of the other solutions that are available out there. Like, for instance, we talked a little bit before about adding components to forms, maybe some analytical components, and they may have data like, for instance, unstructured data like IoT data or image data that they want to run through some of the new Einstein functionality, but then they want to surface that in their forms. Is there an easy way to do that? How can they do that with the new dynamic actions and dynamic components?
Yeah, we've always made sure that the platform was an integrated experience from end to end. Although it's built on many different stacks, the reason for that is because of the scalability requirements. For example, if you're going to be doing OCR, optical character recognition types of things, you need a highly scalable elastic system underneath you to do that at scale. But at the same time, you want to be able to have sort of the rigorous types of environments that Salesforce provides for things like the normal databases and transactionality and things of that nature. So we utilize various public cloud vendors like Amazon and Google as our partners. And we basically take away a lot of the visibility of that to our end customers. That's a big part of the value of providing a platform as a service, providing low-code platforms in general, is to obfuscate that so that they don't have to know about all of those things and they just work out of the box. So in the example of Einstein that you raised, for example, you can use our Einstein builders, which allow you to do things like calculate the predicted value that something would occur. Like maybe, going back to that example of a loan, maybe it's trying to see whether or not this loan is likely to be approved. Maybe you'll work on the ones that are highly likely to be approved first. That type of calculation, that data modeling that's going to happen, and machine learning that's going to happen, that's all going to happen on a more scalable substrate, in this case, probably Heroku. And then that information is going to surface back into the UI in Lightning experience. And again, provide that sort of single pane of glass experience for the end user where they don't really need to know what underlying platform happened to be delivering that capability.
And there was a great example I saw out online about offering kind of a recruiting process with some of these dynamic actions where some of the candidates would see one particular experience and then the interning recruiting, HR people would see another and then the recruiters would see another. But then when the user would interact with them, it would actually kick off these workflows, these kind of business processes. You alluded to a little bit in the beginning about screen flows or some flow builders. How does that integrate and what does it enable for users and for organizations?
Yeah, so our flow builder capability it's really around mapping any type of process that you might have in your organization. And that could actually be a back-end process, like, for example, something that's just an automated chain of events that want to happen. Maybe it's when an order closes, you want an email to be kicked off and sent to somebody, and you also want a notification to be sent to them on their mobile device. That's an example of sort of a back-end process that you can model through our flow builder. But you can also model UI-based processes. So as an example, suppose you had that new hire and you wanted them to actually step through the 5 steps of onboarding them, collecting some information about them, maybe information about the type of machine that they want, information about which types of software they need to be provisioned, et cetera. And you can allow for this sort of branching logic to dynamically change as a person provides information. Maybe, for example, they said that they'd like a Mac, and therefore you ask them questions all about what type of Mac software they want. Those capabilities are deeply integrated into our UI layer. Basically, there is a component, just like everything is a component. You might catch on to a trend here, that you can drag and drop onto the page. And sort of use that to kick off these various flows as they are. Or you can also invoke them as actions in various places. So essentially click a button somewhere, and that button will open up a window that has this thing, will take you through that. One of the very powerful things about flow actually is they can be used basically anywhere. So it can be used inside of the Lightning experience, which is the typical desktop experience that most people have working from their office. But it can also be used inside of a community. As an example, one of our customers, this is a company called Academy Bank. They're a small regional business, regional bank. And when the CARES Act just passed in March, suddenly they saw massive surges in demand in doing loan processing for PPP. And they needed to be able to handle that quickly. They were previously handling this by doing completely manual things. They would actually receive files from their customers. They would then put them into folders. They had different folders to represent stages of the loan application approval process. They'd move them between. They had no idea and visibility of what was going on overall. And they would frequently find that they were creating errors. And over the course of just a weekend, and this is the power of low-code tools, they actually were able to build a loan application process that they were able to surface using, again, flow through a community to their customers, so that these small businesses that are in great need during this pandemic are able to actually just go online and fill in the form and have everything processed through, really, really expediting the process of getting money to the businesses who really need it the most right now.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, time flies when you're having fun, for sure. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. We're running a little bit low on time, but I did want to give you a chance to maybe tell the folks at home where their organization can go to get started on Salesforce and maybe even learn more about dynamic forms and dynamic actions.
Yeah, we actually have a ton of assets online. Of course, you can always go to salesforce.com, but I would really encourage you in particular to go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Salesforce. We have a ton of great assets there. In particular, last month on May 7th, we did something called Low Code Love, which was an event to really celebrate the great things that our customers have been doing with low code, to educate our customers and our prospects about capabilities that are coming out and some things that are available in the future. And I'd encourage all of you to go and check it out, learn more about low code and how it can help your businesses.
Fantastic. Well, folks, you've done it again. You sat through another hour of the best dang enterprise podcast in the universe. So keep your news by listening to us while you wait for your Uber Eats. I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible, especially to my co-host, starting with our very own Mr. Brian Chee. Cheebert, what's going on for you in the coming week? Where can people find you and all of your work?
Broken record. Packing, cleaning, packing, cleaning. Same old. But, I still want to hear from you. I am ADVNETLAB, Advanced Net Lab on Twitter. I'm also Cheebert, spelled CheeBert at twit.tv. Or better yet, why don't you use Twyet at twit.tv and throw an email at all the hosts. We'd love to hear you. We'd love to get your show ideas. Obviously, I'm not going to be so thrilled about complaints, but I got to take the bad with the good, right? Anyway, still, whatever. Love to hear from you folks. Love to chat. Love to share ideas. And you know what? Everybody stay safe.
Thank you, Cheebert. We also have to thank our very own Mr. Curtis Franklin. He's the senior editor at Dark Reading. Curtis, where can the people find you in the coming weeks and all of your work?
Well, they can find me at darkreading.com, and especially at the edge of dark reading, where I do some of my longer work. A lot of interesting things coming up. And interestingly enough, we're getting ready for what is becoming the new conference season. At the end of July and beginning of August, we'll have things like Black Hat and DEF CON fully virtual experiences. I'll be taking part in both of those. Looking forward to meeting people online there. Speaking of online, you can meet me on Twitter. I'm KG4GWA. You can meet me on LinkedIn, Instagram, pretty much all of the social media channels. Look me up. I'll be happy to see you there.
Thank you, Curtis. Well, folks, we also have to thank you as well. You're the person who drops in each and every week to listen to our show to get the enterprise goodness that you want. And we want to make it easy for you to watch and to listen and catch up on your enterprise news. Go to our show page right now, twit.tv/Twyet. There you'll find all the amazing back episodes, the show notes, the guest information, the co-host information, and the links to the stories that we do during the show. But more importantly, next to those videos, you'll get those helpful download and subscribe links. That's right. Support the show by getting your audio version, your video version, your HD video version of your choice, and listen on any one of your devices or on any one of your podcast applications as well. It's the best way to stay on top of your enterprise and IT news, so definitely subscribe. Now, after you subscribe, impress your friends with a gift of Twyet. Go ahead and give it to them, because I'll tell you one thing, they can get some great information from Twyet as well. Now, if you already subscribed, and you're available 1 p.m., 1:30 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays. We do this show live.twit.tv. Come see how the show is run. Come see how the pizza's made. We love to do the show, and we love to do it live, so definitely come and join us live. But also, if you're going to watch live, you might as well jump into our chat room as well. We have a great set of characters there today, really great set of people, and with some great questions and some great content that came from there. And that is at irc.twit.tv. Just jump in there. You can watch the stream. You can ask questions. You can interact. It's a lot of fun. Now, if you can't watch the show live and you can't interact with the chat room live, you can always still be part of the conversation. We have a great website, twit.community. It's a 24/7 discussion place where you can go and talk about the show. You can talk with the co-hosts, the guests, the hosts of the show. And in fact, you can also talk about all the content or any other topic you want to bring up. That's twit.community. Come join the community and join the 24/7 discussion. Remember, you can always follow me at twitter.com/LouMM. There I'll post all my enterprise tidbits. Plus, I have great content and great conversations with people like you. Plus, I post what I do during my normal work week at Microsoft. You can always check out developers.microsoft.com/office for all the great ways to customize your Office experience to make it more productive for you and your organization. I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible, especially to Leo and Lisa. They continue to support us each and every week to do This Week in Enterprise Tech, and we could not do the show without them. So thank you for all their support. Also, thank you to all the people behind the scenes. Thank you to all the engineers at Twit and all the staff members. They've been working really hard for many, many years on Twyet, and we really appreciate their support. We also thank Mr. Brian Chee one more time. Cheebert, he's not only our co-host, but he's also our tireless producer. He does all of the bookings and the plannings for the show. He really is the backbone of this, and we really appreciate his support. Thank you, Cheebert, again. Of course, before we sign out, we have to thank our TD for today, Jeff. Jeff is the man behind the curtain. Jeff, thank you so much for all your support. How are things going on Twitter? You still the lone man in the studio, or is some people kind of trickling in now?
Still the lone man in the studio. People are trickling in a little bit, but we're taking it really slow and we're being safe. And just like everybody else, please stay safe. And man, I'm glad this week is almost over. So everybody stay safe and definitely stay sane. And thanks, everybody.
Definitely TGIF. And until next time, I'm Louis Maresca, just reminding you, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep quiet.
Hi, I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android, where each week I'm joined by Ron Richards, Florence Ion, and a rotating crew of Android journalists, developers, and enthusiasts, where we talk about the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/AAA or find the show in your podcatcher of choice. That's All About Android.